Hello, welcome to my reading channel. My name is Alexandra and this is my September-October reading wrap-up. I didn't do as much reading as I had hoped to in September. I've been doing a bit of traveling, hence my Gilmore Girls video, where I went around Connecticut and Massachusetts and went to the places that inspired the Gilmore Girls. It was so much fun. I went with my best friend, so I highly recommend checking it out. But today we are going to dive into the books that I read. The autumnal months to me mean reading kind of classics because that's what you read when you're going back to school, at least for my high school, and also kind of like darker spooky themes, fantasy, like cozy witchy vibes. So in October I read 4 books. 2 of them I read physical copies. One of them I rented from Kindle Unlimited, I believe, and read it on my Kindle. And the last one, I borrowed it from the library and listened to it as an audiobook. In October, I read 6 books, which I'm quite pleased with. 3 of them were physical copies books. 2 of them were audiobooks again, and 1 of them was a Kindle book. So although this is my current pile of my September-October reads, I did read a bit more than that. When I was collecting the books, I was like, oh my gosh, did I only read that many books? But I was like, oh no, I did quite a bit more reading. So let's just jump into the reading wrap up. So the first book I finished in September was The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Bronte. The way that I want to be a Bronte fan, I really didn't like Wuthering Heights. I had to DNF it. I didn't love Jane Eyre. I liked this one quite a bit more, and Anne Bronte is, funnily enough, I think the least appreciated of the 3. So it starts off with a correspondence of a guy, Gilbert. He lives in what the reader is led to believe are some kind of moors, and if you've ever visited Haworth, it's very atmospheric. You can understand why there's that gothic, gloomy tone to all of the books, as well as the fact that they were growing up in the Victorian period, so that gothic style was very popular then. So it starts off with Gilbert, and there's a new tenant of Wildfell Hall. I keep wanting to call it Winterfell, like in Game of Thrones, and call it Tenant of Winterfell Hall. She moves in, she's very mysterious, she has a son, and he kind of falls in love with her. She's very intelligent, she loves to paint and art, but she cuts herself off from the society, and the locals start to hate her a little bit and talk badly about her and start rumors being like, oh, if she doesn't hang out and like she has to earn money and she has a boy, like we don't believe that the husband's really died. So there really starts to kick up a fuss about it. In the meantime, Gilbert is falling more and more in love with her and kind of pushing against this ganging up on her. I'd say the middle portion of the book, which takes up the largest part, is explaining her backstory, explaining her relationship with certain people in the village, like the guy that owns Wildfell Hall, explaining her past, explaining why she can't reciprocate feelings for him. It's really good. It's an amazing piece of what is believed to be kind of like the earliest feminist literature, because it really hones into the importance for women of choosing wisely when you're getting married. It's really expressing the don't fall into the I can change him vibe, because you can't change him, don't try. So I really love Anne Bronte for that. I gave this 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed the story. The pacing was a little bit slow, but I think when it comes to classics, it does tend to be a bit slower than you would want. I enjoyed some of the main characters, annoyed by the ones you're supposed to be annoyed by, because they are kind of caricatures of people in society who think they're better than other people. Of the Bronte sisters, I would recommend this one the most. Don't hate me, fans of Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, please. The next book I read was The Lost Story by Meg Shaffer. The way I wanted to love this. It is a Narnia retelling in modern time, in which 2 boys that are friends, I think they're about like 11, 12, named Jeremy and Rafe, run away into the forest. Months later, they show up and they're fine. They're in fine physical condition, and the whole town is shocked because they shouldn't have been able to survive if they hadn't been found by that point, because it's a huge forest. One of them remembers what happens, the other doesn't, and it becomes estranged. The one that does remember things becomes a PI trying to find people, missing persons, and he's really well known in his career when Emily, a girl arrives onto the scene and asks him to look into a case of her missing sister, who had gotten lost in the same woods that he got lost in. It had all the beginnings of a good story, but it just kind of collapsed for me. It wasn't, I know that magic isn't necessarily a science, but like it does have to have some reality grounding to it, and it didn't have that for me. They didn't necessarily make sense, and the stakes were kind of high at a certain point in life and death, but I simply didn't care because I didn't connect with the characters. They felt very much kind of flimsy, of stereotypical, what would an introvert and an extrovert do in that dynamic, and they just weren't carved out enough for me to care. Again, I really wanted to love this. And it just fell a bit short. I love whimsy in the books, but it just wasn't grounded in anything. Trust of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson is a great example of this because it is whimsical, it is fun, it's silly, it's goofy, but everything made sense. The magic system made sense. The characters, they were dimensional, they were funny, and this didn't hit those marks for me. So I gave it a 2 stars. The next book I read was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. At first, it had all of the makings of being really, really cute. It's about this woman who inherits a coffee shop from her aunt in a really cute small town, and she's forced to make friends with the locals and fall in love with one of the really handsome, burly, grumpy characters. It had all of the makings of being really cute, really adorable. I mean, it has Pumpkin Spice Cafe in the title. It's supposed to be cozy, but it just was so hollow, so two-dimensional. I was looking on Goodreads to see what someone else thought, and they said it was as if AI was forced to consume hours of Hallmark movies and Gilmore Girls and then was asked to write a book. And that hit the nail on the head. So as you can see, I read kind of 2 books back to back that I did not enjoy. It was not a great time for me, and perhaps that's why I didn't read as much that month as I would have liked to. I really need to, I'm trying to get better about giving up on books that I'm not enjoying. The prose was really, really repetitive. Another thing that really annoyed me, the male love interest character, whenever anything would happen in the lease to her, she would sigh and he'd be like, it broke his heart, it wrenched its heart, and it was just a little bit too much, and they had no foundation of like similarities for liking each other. It just felt kind of like they were hot, they were both single, of course they fell in love, and I personally want a little bit more than that, especially because it is a plot A romance, like romance is the core of it. You need to develop that core romantic element for it to carry the story. Like they had their own separate lives, like things going on for them in terms of their own small businesses, but I didn't really buy it. Again, so sorry. The predictability of the plot was an issue for me either. I wanted that small, cozy romance of a small town. The delivery was not great. Some people loved it though, and again, I want to say, if I didn't like a book and you loved it, that is absolutely fine. Like that is really actually quite great. And it's so interesting how we're all so different and we can all consume different things. Like some of my friends, their favorite books are books I did not enjoy and vice versa. So this isn't necessarily a comment on the quality of your reading taste or the quality of my reading taste. It's more of a and speaks to the subjectivity of reading as an activity, which, fun. I gave Pumpkin Spice Cafe 2 stars. I can't find it in myself to give a 1 star. If it's a 1 star, I feel like I should just quit the book. I should DNF it. Whereas if I really didn't like it, but I'm pushing myself to finish it, 2 star, The next book that I listened to, actually, I borrowed it from my library, was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling. I read this years and years and years ago when I was younger, like a teenager, and really enjoyed it. And I wanted to see how it would hold up, but also after reading some books that I didn't greatly enjoy, I was like, I need something to pick me up that I can like listen to when I'm falling asleep or listen to when I'm doing chores around the house, that sort of thing. So I specifically started listening to it because Stephen Fry's the narrator, and oh my goodness, so good. So it's also another reason I chose it is because we are getting into, well, at that point we were ramping into spooky season, and you can't celebrate Halloween without watching Harry Potter, and so I wanted to see kind of how it was composed. And as you'll see for October's wrap up, I listened to a lot of hours of Stephen Fry talking about Hogwarts. If you don't know what Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is about, I can't help you. But basically it's Harry Potter, Ron, and Hermione, and there is a creature in the castle that has been unleashed and is attempting to kill half-bloods of the wizards, and so they try and stop it. Dun dun dun. Go watch a Harry Potter movie if you haven't seen that one. The first read of October was Cold Clay by Juneau Black, and it's the second book in the Shady Hollow mystery. It follows a reporter named Vera Vixen, and she's a fox, and she is new-ish to the town. She just came off of a high of solving a murder mystery in the first book, and she lives in a community with other forest creatures, and it's so cute because she has a best friend who's a raven who owns a bookshop, and it's very much giving Edgar Allan Poe. And then another one, a moose, owns a cafe, and there's like a little police station of bears, and they're not very good at solving crimes, but they try, and so she needs to help them. So basically, there's an orchard. And they're digging up a tree that isn't producing any more fruit, and they find the bones of a moose from years before, and so she needs to try and solve the mystery because a friend of hers is arrested under suspicion of the murder. And she's like, there's no way he could have done that. He's so fabulous. He makes amazing apple cider donuts. I can't say more than that, but it's really cute. Like, I saw the murderer coming from a mile away, but this is kind of like, at the beginning it says, this is a book that doesn't take itself too seriously, and consume it, enjoy it for what it is. Like, I know that I was complaining previously about Lost Story not being grounded in enough reality or enough magic. Again, I think there is a certain amount where it becomes suspension of disbelief for things that are unlikely to happen versus suspension of disbelief due to ability to craft a story and drive a story and make it make sense. You know, it has to work within the physics of the universe that you have created, if that makes sense. The descriptors of this are just so good. For example, in page 4, it goes, the early autumn mornings were rather chilly now, and quite often a layer of fog would slip into town at night, slinking through the quiet streets and curling up around the great trees in the park. Early risers had to brave a clinging mist that hid the details of the world, making Shady Hollow seem like a dream of itself. But soon the sun would rise over the distant ridge and burn away the fog until the last ragged strips retreated into the woods as the town bustled into action and animals emerged from houses and dens to begin their work or play. It reminds me of my morning walks with my dog and just the reflective nature of those early mornings, and it just perfectly connects community and friendship and cozy descriptors and like a cozy house. It is basically, you know, the memes of I was born to be a little furry creature reading, drinking tea, and living in a tree stump. Like, that's this book. And I'm glad that I got to live in that universe for a little while. Thankfully, there's like 2 or 3 books coming after this, but this is one you can easily reread because it's such a fun time. So I gave that book 4 stars. The next book I read was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. I listened again to that one on audiobook. I got that off of Audible, and Stephen Fry was again the narrator, and so good. Like, he just has a voice that's like a big warm hug. I want all of my books, every single book ever. I could read, listen to a law book being read by him, and I would just be tickled pink, basically. So the third book in the Harry Potter series is the one where he returns to Hogwarts and he's at the danger of being hunted down by a mad wizard on the loose who's broken out of the wizard prison of Azkaban, Sirius Black. It was such a delight to listen to. I found myself going on longer walks just so I could keep listening to it. It really ushered in October really nicely. It has criticisms of the legal and justice system, truth, loyalty and friendship, responsibility and morality, and how those things work together. I gave Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban 5 stars. Next was Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, and this is her debut novel. It is about this woman who is a witch, but only casually so, using her powers to make tea, give good book recommendations, things like that. On the eve of her 30th birthday, she finds out that she needs to go to her coven, her council, and prove that she deserves to keep her powers or else they'll be given away. This is all about friendship, learning to accept yourself and others, finding your family and cherishing them. It's about magic and fun and books and reading, the joy that all brings. I'm not going to jump too much further into it because I did a reading vlog, and that was my most recent video that I recommend to go watch. It was fun. It was in conjunction with reading this book. I did like a staycation with my mom, and we stayed in a bed and breakfast in Ripon, and we went to Fountains Abbey, and we went to the Royal Studley Water Garden, and that was so much fun. So yes, go check that one out. Oh, I gave this 5 stars. Did I say that? I don't know. I'll find out when I watch this back. The next book I read was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab. I borrowed it off of the library on my Kindle. It is a middle grade book about this young girl whose parents are paranormal investigators. Her mom believes her dad's the skeptic, but what neither of them know is that she actually can see ghosts after a near-death experience. Her parents are taken away during the summer to film some ghostly encounters and explore those dark histories of some places in Europe, and she's dragged along. One of those places being Edinburgh, which, as a lot of people know, is a supposedly extremely haunted city. I love that city so much. It's one of my favorites. I also had, again, another plug for a video I did. I did a trip to Edinburgh about a year ago, and it is just such a stunning place. It's got a huge literary history, and it does have a very gory history. So basically, she finds out that she's not the only kind of person that can see ghosts, and there is a ghostly threat that she and her ghost pal must try and contain. It's a middle grade story. It was quick. I think I read it. I sat down on the couch and I read it in a couple of hours, but it was just delightful. It's what I needed. I kind of needed a palate cleanser after like reading some of my, I mean, Rewitched wasn't a heavy read, but you know what I mean. I wanted to keep writing that, fun, that ghostly, spooky, but not really, like Casper the Ghost kind of scary vibe. And that's exactly what it gave. I don't know that I'm going to read the rest of the books in the series. I mainly just read, because there are 2 more, one in Paris in the catacombs and one somewhere else. I mainly just read this one though, because I love Edinburgh. So I gave that one 4 stars for what it was. It's not one that I'll probably come back to, but it was a fun time. The final physical book that I read in the month of October is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is a classic that I have been meaning to get to for ages, and I'm so glad that I finally did. Not necessarily because it's my favorite classic, but a little bit to check it off the list, but to get the references as well. So if you don't know, Dorian Gray is about this young man who is super attractive, and everyone kind of ogles at him, treats him very special because he's so good looking, gives him a benefit of doubt, again, because he's good looking. He becomes friends with this artist who's so inspired by his good looks, and so he paints him. And Dorian Gray realizes his own mortality and how he'll never be as good looking as he is in the present. So he wishes that the painting can age and, you know, become ugly or whatever, while he remains young. Follows him over the course of, I believe, about 20 years, and the different influences his friends have on him. There's Sir Henry, who is kind of the devil on his shoulder, and then the artist friend, who I'm forgetting his name, is the angel on his shoulder. He kind of chooses to side with Sir Henry, making really bad decisions. He blames Henry for a lot of the decisions he makes, like, oh, it's all your fault. And it's like, yes, he had an influence on you, but at the end of the day, you're the one that made these decisions and decided to cross certain lines of morality. And at the end of the day, that's what this book is doing. It's questioning beauty and youth and morality, and how we kind of overlook certain people because of the halo effect, the angel effect of they're so good looking, they would never. I liked the prose style it was written in. Oscar Wilde has a very distinct kind of flavor of his writing. One of my, not criticisms, but like one of the things I didn't love is that all of the characters spoke in the same way. You know, it makes sense for an author to have a style, but there was no distinguishing really the characters from each other. Another point that I found really interesting is that a lot of the quotes actually came from the immoral character. So I'm wondering how much of a spin that has on the original reading, if you know that they're supposed to be kind of an immoral but funny character. So I gave this 3.25 stars. The plot just was a little bit slow for me. I felt, even though it's like a short book, I felt like quite a bit of it could have been cut out and got to the point a little bit better. Again, the main characters aren't very likable, and I need to have somebody to root for, and you just were kind of rooting against a lot of people in this. I can understand why some people adore this book, why it's a real favorite, just not one of my favorites. However, that being said, I might go back and reread it and love it in a few years. In high school, I really didn't like The Great Gatsby, and I reread it a couple years ago and I absolutely loved it, like one of my favorite books. So I think it's just sometimes reading it at the right point of your life, it can really, you know, give it a little oomph. And again, that's another thing about subjectivity, is you are projecting a part of your lived experience and collaborating in a way with the author, with what they have created. So you're not necessarily reading and interpreting it in the exact way it was intended, but that's kind of the amazing part about literature. And again, why we enjoy it and why we don't. What is it to enjoy a book? Is it your personal enjoyment? Is it the style that the author used? Is it the message that they were trying to get across? Is it how well did they execute what they intended to execute? Going back to Wuthering Heights, how I didn't enjoy it. Some people don't necessarily like it. I didn't like it because I didn't like the characters, but some people are like, no, that's not the point. You're not supposed to like the characters. You're supposed to like X, Y, and Z. And that's what really resonates with them. However, that doesn't necessarily resonate with me because I need those likable characters to kind of anchor me and really keep me going in a story. I'm interested to see what you have to think about that. The final book I read, I listened to, no surprise, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling, narrated by Stephen Fry. You'll really kind of like see a theme here that that's been my go-to audiobook listen. Like I tried to listen to a different audiobook narrator and I just got so annoyed. I was like, this isn't Stephen Fry. I can't with this. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, it's his 4th year and they're holding the Tri-Wizard tournament. He is not supposed to be able to enter, but magically he does, and he has to fight in this competition with him and 3 other wizards from 3 schools, Hogwarts, Beauxbatons, and Durmstrang. I liked it. I actually liked it better than the movie, because I think in the movie, when a certain character passes away, there's like that visceral reaction of seeing them die, but in the books you don't really see it visually. Well, you don't. It is a book. It didn't bother me as much, and that's the same with the 5th Harry Potter. When a certain beloved character dies in the movie, I can't watch that movie because I know it's gonna happen and I don't enjoy it. Whereas in the book it was like sad, but I was like, okay. I'm not devastated by this. Again, it was another cozy vibe to get me through October. I just love Stephen Fry so much. I could listen to him read the Yellow Pages and I think I would be content. Thank you so much for watching my September-October reading wrap-up. I'm hoping to get more regular in terms of my posting and well, I'm regular about reading, but not necessarily talking about it. I found summarizing the books that I read over the past couple months quite challenging, actually, which is interesting because I realized how much of the details in terms of like character names that I've forgotten. I remember the overall impact of the story. I remember how I felt, and it's like that Maya Angelou quote of people will forget what you said, but they won't forget how you made them feel, and I certainly won't forget how these books made me feel. If you've read any of these books and you enjoyed them, you didn't like them, had a similar or different opinion to me, I'd love to hear what that opinion was, why you felt that way, as well as based on kind of how I felt about any books. If you have any recommendations, send them my way because I'm always looking for my next favorite read. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.